Welcome to Biz Coach and Coffee, where our guests are experts, entrepreneurs, coaches, and consultants that share tips, strategies, and tactics to help small business entrepreneurs grow their business for long-term success. Please welcome your host, Biz Coach Steve Feld. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Biz Coach and Coffee. I am your host, Biz Coach Steve Feld. Today, we have another wonderful guest for you. We have Kenny Weiss. Now, Kenny, he's a life coach, speaker, an author, and the founder of the Greatness Movement. Got to get that right because I keep wanting to say greater movement. It's so impactful, and he's a wonderful. We always have a great time talking to each other. So please welcome Kenny Weiss.
How you doing, Steve? Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I mean, one of the big things, a little bit of an intro, but can you really dig in a little bit more about who you are and who you serve?
Sure. Yeah, really my skill sets are relationships, people who've been through emotional trauma, and emotional mastery is the new neuroscience shows we become what we feel, not what we think. And so that's really my skill set, is helping, because as a society, we've kind of always downplayed emotions. Yet we're finding that's really what drives your intellect. And so that's, whether it be your relationship, your career, your athletics, whatever it is you're doing, that's really what I hone in, is how our emotions both regulate us up and regulate us down.
Absolutely. I know you work with a large gamut of people from all walks of life, and we have primarily a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs here.
Ah.
I mean, how can you help them? I mean, they get stuck.
Sure. One of the biggest, what you just said, entrepreneurs, small business owners, one of the biggest things they struggle with is fear. Just money issues, am I going to make it? And, it's a lot of pressure, especially starting out. So, there's a way I've broken down fear I haven't heard anyone else talk about. And 3 can really be simplified into either the fear of rejection, the fear of inadequacy. In other words, I don't think I have the skills, tools, or knowledge to do something, or the fear of powerlessness. So any experience, I mean, if you think of starting a business, well, rejection, they're not going to want my product, want me, whatever. Inadequacy, do I have the skills, tools, and knowledge? There's a lot to learn. Like yes. I had a lot of that. The business side is not my skill set. Teaching people this stuff is my skill set. Well, how do you deal with that? And then powerlessness. This usually comes from the inability to say no, because we want to be people pleasers, and doing what's called giving ourselves away. We try to do too much. And so those are all feelings that a business coach is going, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. And yet somebody's overcome by those feelings and they don't know how to navigate it. Those are, especially with entrepreneurs, that's the skill set I help them with, is all 3 of those.
Exactly. And I see it all the time. Every time I hear about the fear of rejection, it just brings me back to like junior high, asking that girl to the dance.
Yeah, we all struggle with that. And again, because we don't teach much about emotions and how they work, we get stuck in this sense that my value and my worth is dependent on somebody else. And that's where the rejection comes from, is, wait a minute. I mean, because really, do you see what it is? I only have value and worth if you say I do. And so the solution is in the opposite. They're not rejecting me, because think of it. If somebody chooses a different product, if they choose a different company to hire a different coach, it has nothing to do with me. It's like, okay, like, what's your favorite food for you, Steve?
Steak.
Okay. Well, so if somebody likes lobster more, does that mean they're rejecting you, or vice versa? It's just they wanted something different.
That's all.
But we haven't taught how to navigate that, these emotional differences. And so people take it on themselves as though they might be the problem. And so it goes deeper than that, but that's a basic idea of where that rejection comes from, and kind of a reframe of it. There's obviously much more than we can just to talk about that one talk. I wrote a book. So it's ours, but that's just a little bit of a taste as to how all of that works.
Exactly. I'd even add in the fear of success.
That's the biggest one. There, as I say in my book, there isn't a single person that's ever been afraid to fail. It's not even humanly possible, because every single person wakes up every day or during the day, they're thinking about they know exactly what they need to do to succeed, whether it's send out another email, make a phone call, do one part of the business. But what happens? They sit there and go, oh, I just don't feel like doing it. Well, did you hear what that is? That's a feeling. That feeling, the procrastination, whatever it is, they don't know how to overcome that feeling. And you can give them thoughts all day long or processes, do this, it won't work. You have to have the knowledge, skills, and tools, as I call it, to change that feeling. Well, that's what we don't teach business people. We all try and get them in there. Well, we now know there isn't really a left-right brain difference. They both share in responsibility, but typically they would think that's a left brain thinking problem. But it's really to solve their fear of success. It's an emotional problem that they don't know how to conquer that feeling and how to switch out of that. And so that's also the proof that they're not afraid to fail, because in that moment, they've chosen not to do what they know will give them success. And so you're right, they are afraid of succeeding, but they're not even aware of it. And then they don't know the process to overcome that feeling.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, I see it, you see it every day too.
Yeah.
It's like they know what they need to do. They just can't get themselves to do it.
Yes. And so ultimately, what I help them see is, where did that feeling come from? And where did it originate? Now, a lot of people don't like to hear this, but all of them go to childhood.
Yeah.
We are our childhood, and our brain formed in 3 sections: intuition first, emotion second, cognition third. Most people, especially entrepreneurs, are trying to solve things in cognition when the answer is both in intuition and emotion. And that's really underdeveloped in the entrepreneur, because they're told to leave that alone. And so those also got developed in the first 7 years of their life. And so those emotions that are coming up, whether you're 20, 60, 80 years old as an entrepreneur, if you don't know how to navigate that and recognize, oh, wait a minute, this fear or whatever it is, how I'm categorizing this situation, it all goes back to this moment when I was younger. If you can't find that, if you can't rework that moment back there, you're stuck repeating it. You can't get out of it. So that's what I help clients see and overcome in the entrepreneur business space.
Well, I guess that kind of explains why I've had 7 businesses and ran others, because I was so busy selling stuff out of my locker in elementary school and getting caught by the teacher all the time. What I do, get my hand slapped and go right back to it again.
There you go. Yeah. And so that's the key. I mean, I'll just give you, for those people listening, a simple way to start finding that. And these are the things they learn. But whenever anything is going on in your day, if you can't find an answer to something, just pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Now, unfortunately, because we have such a bias against feelings, 70% of the population doesn't even know what they feel. They're not even connected to their feelings anymore. So if you go to my website, www.thegreatnessuniversity.com, if you go to the free content section, there's a feelings wheel that you can download. And so I have my clients 3 to 5 times a day, check in on their feelings. What are they feeling? The next question is, so that you do that for a couple of days, because most people aren't even used to knowing what their feelings are. So they have to kind of get used to even, oh, I feel stuck or frozen or angry. Wow, I didn't realize I was angry.
Wow.
Do that at first, and then ask yourself, where in my body do I feel it? Chest, shoulders, back, head. I mean, it'll be somewhere, and depending on the feeling, it might be in different places. Do that for a couple of days, and then finally ask yourself, what's my first memory of having this feeling? Now, most people will remember something within the past year. Write it down. Okay, what's the next one? Something within 5 years. What's the next one? Just keep going back. And eventually you'll arrive at something between, 3 and 10 years old. That's where you learned that feeling. And that's the premise of my book, Your Journey to Success. It's called the worst day cycle. The reason we don't succeed in life is we are stuck replaying that emotional pain from our past that we've never healed. And now you've just proven your worst day cycle. And we all have many of them. And so now you know the source of why your business, your personal life, whatever it may be, you know the source of the problem, you know where it originated, and then the rest of my process teaches you how to heal that and shift the emotion. So then your thoughts can change, then your actions can change.
That's very powerful stuff. We're going to get a little deeper into that. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsor. We will be right back with Kenny.
This episode is sponsored by Spotlight Books. Get your expert book completed in 30 days. If you don't have an expert lead magnet book about you and how you serve your market, then visit www.spotlight-books.com. Link is also in the show notes. Put a spotlight on your expertise.
And we're back. So Kenny, we're talking about that deep, hidden, past emotional, trauma, if you will.
Yeah. We've all been through trauma.
It's causing our reactions today, our emotions.
Yeah.
And you also,
go ahead.
You mentioned the wheel too. I was like, oh, wow, I'm really fascinated about the emotional wheel.
Yeah, there are many ways. I mean, lots of different people, whether it's a feelings list or a feelings wheel. I just use the wheel because most people, it starts from the center out with basic feelings. And then as you get further into the wheel, it gets more complex, more pinpointed. Well, most people are going to start in the middle where it's sad, angry, scared. But as you develop your, what I teach is emotional mastery, you're going to be able to work the outer side of the wheel, which is more pinpointed, specific as to what you're really feeling. And the more expertise you develop in that, that's when business and everything starts taking off. And you kind of brought it up, the trauma aspect. That's one of the things that's tough for people to get is, wait a minute, my childhood wasn't traumatic. And I'll just say this. If
Glad
you've
yours
ever
wasn't.
been yelled at, your childhood was traumatic. And that's just normal. Parents yell. Those moments, doing timeout, spanked, just, mom, dad, you're driving me crazy. Boom. There's rejection. Wow. There's something wrong with me. These are all traumatic moments. And we have, as a child, to survive it, we go, it's not a big deal. And therefore, as an adult, we go, well, that doesn't even matter. Why should I look at that? Right. Well, that's the source of it. And that's what modern neuroscience and everything is showing us. Well, we've known for decades, behavioral science, that we become our childhood. We just don't really like talking about that, but that's at the source of it. And trauma isn't always the big T of severe stuff. Just those moments when we felt sad, lonely, scared, underappreciated, unnoticed. Those are traumatic moments, and they get stuck in our brain and body until we learn as an adult to reprocess all of those emotions.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about the emotions of business owners. Where I see it coming out is usually in a mastermind group.
Yeah. Because
we're in a very supportive world. We're there to help each other. We're in a servient environment. And we're all coming from, support. That's when I see business owners really spill it.
Yeah, there's a level of safety and connection. And, many of us in our childhood, like a couple of questions I ask people, they'll say, because over 80% of people say, no, my childhood was perfect, no problems. And I say, well, okay, when you were a child and you felt sad, angry, or scared at anything your parents did or said, could you talk to them about it? Well, what was our experience? Get in your room. I don't want to hear it. Well, now you're in a mastermind and no one's saying that. And man, all those years of never being able to speak what they really felt. Well, now there are these open arms going, no, I feel the same thing. And all of a sudden, so it's intimacy, it's vulnerability, it's connection. And that's the premise of a mastermind, is really to get I mean, look, don't hear me as disparaging parents. It's a brutal job. There's no way you could ever do it perfectly and not leave, as I say, perfect imperfections. You can't get through it because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. And I believe every parent adores their child, but it's a thankless job that we're under-equipped and just could never do perfectly. But we do leave with wounds, and those don't get addressed. And our parents, even with technology, there's just so much for a parent to navigate. They can't be there for us every second of the day. Well, that's why when we get an adult and in that mastermind, all of a sudden, it's very easy for us to open up because we've wanted to since we were a kid.
Absolutely. And I know I see the direct correlation between their business life and their personal life. Now, unplugging those emotions in their business, how does that really impact their personal life from your perspective?
Well, I'll give you a story from my book, or a couple of them. There's a lawyer that I talked to before the book came out, and he was working with a business coach. And I know the business coach; he's a great coach. His stuff is wonderful, and his business was doing better. But he talked about there's some things the business coach wanted him to do. He knew the business would be better, but he didn't want to do it. And I was like, well, what's going up? And we talked. It was fear. I was like, that's all fear. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. It's like, okay, fine. And I get it. A lot of people don't want to deal with their feelings. Well, he called me about six to 9 months after the book came out, and we tackled all those feelings. Well, ever since then, they've been the number one law firm, top 100 law firm in real estate. Since then, there's a real estate agent in my book, Jay. He's the only person who's like, you can use my real name. And he talks about how his business was like this, bankruptcy and a lot of trouble. Well, I just saw him just a couple of weeks ago before Thanksgiving. He is now running a team of 48 realtors. He's created this huge company. And it was, both of them, there's stuff in their childhood, things that they didn't think much of. And once that gets cleared away, again, studies show our intellect is predicated on our emotional ability because of the way we process information. If we are processing information without emotional depth and breadth, then our intellectual, the way we will then process the thought-based action, will be deficient. So the higher we can process it emotionally, the more we can tap into the innate intellect that's there. So if there's a discrepancy, and this drives the intellect more than if we know numbers and facts, the emotional coloring, because it'll prejudice how we view the intellectual facts. And so if this is deficient in how we basically characterize incoming data, then you can have all the perfect information, but you won't process it or characterize it correctly because of this. And that's why, and that's in both of those cases, that's what was happening. And so as we dealt with the pain that was getting in the way, it allowed their natural gifts intellectually to prosper.
It's amazing stuff because, we see it all the time, both of us. It's these emotions that stop us. It's the deep-seated fears deep inside that we just try to put in the corner, and they're always rearing their head.
Yeah, the studies show one of the misconceptions that people have is they think we keep those emotions in our head, but they actually store in our body. That's why the practice I gave you, we store emotions in our body. That's really, as we're discovering in medicine, the primary driver of all illness and disease is that emotion is stuck in the body. It creates really a chemical addiction inside the body for that emotion to keep firing. Well, eventually those cells break down from the repeated use, and that's really the premise of illness and disease. And so, what do they say? Stress is the number one driver of health conditions, and stress is the problem. Well, for those of you who don't know, the clinical definition of stress, if you read it and look it up, it's the activation of the fight or flight system. So all of us, whenever we are stressed, we are in white hot fear. That's an emotional condition. You can't think your way out of stress Because what happens when we're in fight or flight, the blood stops flowing to the front part of our brain, which is where we think. We are purely acting on emotion. So as an entrepreneur, anyone in business, if you don't have the ability, if you don't have emotional mastery and the ability to regulate your fight or flight system and all these other aspects, you're just limiting your ability to succeed. That's all. But
That's it.
there's societal bias against dealing with our emotions, and that's why I'm doing this. Is it's changing. People are much more open to it, but those that choose to pursue it, things start changing really fast.
It's amazing. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but I know I'm a giver and I know you're a giver. What you already gave us one free resource. What is something that can help these business owners, get through all this that you can give them?
Well, I'm going to provide you a link to, I have several master classes, but one, your journey to emotional mastery. It gives you the premise, how I kind of laid out the feelings wheel and how to track feelings in your body and then find the original source. It's a master class that walks you through that. So I'll provide you with that link. It's free, the whole course. Plus, you're going to get four other journey books in there. One on how to conquer rejection, one how to heal pain from the past, a confrontation model. So for your relationships, I know this sounds crazy, but if you use this confrontation model, you will love to fight with your partner. It creates it literally ends fights and creates the love and connection we all need. So, and then also as part of that is 90 days of audible affirmation. So all of that is in one big package that I'll give you the link to, and your viewers and listeners can get access to that to start getting the basics of emotional mastery for themselves.
Excellent. We'll definitely put those links in the show notes. So please take advantage of Kenny's offer. Any parting thoughts?
I guess it would, it would be that while I can understand the fear of pursuing something emotionally, just pay attention. What are you feeling? Fear. So that's not something you'll ever be able to think yourself out of. You need the knowledge, skills, and tools emotionally to navigate out of that, so that goes away. If that's what you're looking for, then this beginning masterclass will really help you get started down that path and lessen that sense of, man, this is overwhelming.
Excellent. Folks, if you have that feeling in your business and you just can't get through it, give Kenny a call. Take advantage of his offer. Kenny, thank you so much for being our guest.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to help some more people with this. So, and as always, it's just good to see you.
Thanks. Well, folks, we hope if you like this episode, please like it and subscribe so you get to hear other great experts helping you get your business to higher success. I am Biz Coach Steve Feld, wishing you and your business much success.
We hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you'd like to discuss how you can apply these strategies in your business, let us know. This episode is sponsored by Spotlight Books. Get your own expert book written about you in 30 days. Set yourself apart from the competition. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. Also, feel free to give us your comments. We look forward to hearing from you on Biz Coach and Coffee.